What's happening, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Phightin Words. Anthony SanFilippo is back. I'm Bob Wankel. I'm back. Anthony, are the Phillies back?
Well, Bob, I mean, I'm not one of those guys who likes to always pat himself on the back, right? But I believe it was on this episode, on this show, last episode, when I sat there and said, I'm going to stick my neck out and predict that the Phillies will sweep the Toronto Blue Jays. And I rarely pick sweeps, right? Rarely pick sweeps. And so I just had a feeling, just had a notion that was coming. And it didn't go in the exact way that I thought it would. I thought the harder game would be the first one, and the other two would be easier. It ended up being the middle game that was the tougher one. But they still got it done.
Pretty good. I told you on Friday that I kind of felt it brewing in my chest. It's kind of like somewhere in the middle of my throat, and I just couldn't quite get there. I think that Saturday game, the way Saturday went down, was what I saw happening on Friday night, but maybe with that lead not being protected, keeping them short of the sweep. But they get it done, and they're suddenly playing very good baseball again. Big series win over the Cubs. The Blue Jays have been red hot coming into that series, 8 games over 500. And the Phillies took it to them this weekend, especially yesterday. 18 hits, a couple doubles, a grand slam, a big home run from Alec Boehm. And all of a sudden, this is all looking really good. And then, oh, by the way, that Mets team, that's all they needed was me to come out on Friday and say, I've been really impressed. I've been really impressed with what the Mets are doing. And then, boom, there you go. A disastrous weekend for the Mets. And the Phillies are only 2.5 games behind them now in the NL East.
That's the thing I wanted to say to you, Bob. It's because the last thing you left us with at the last episode was these next 10 games are going to be really big, with the Mets who they're playing, the Phillies who they're playing. How much can the Phillies make up ground over the next 10 games? And I said to you, over the next 10, if they got it down to they're within 3, are you good with that? And you said, yeah, I would be good with that. Yeah. And they got there in 3 games. They didn't even need the other 7.
Yep. And now we're in a spot where Phillies go down to Miami now for 4 games before they return home and play this Mets team that they kind of 0-1 to. And then the Mets, meanwhile, have to deal with a desperate, if not good, Braves team. And then obviously have to come to Philadelphia. So it sets up a really interesting week in the NL East. And an important one still for the Phillies, even though they've kind of made up that ground that we had sort of talked about being a best case scenario by the end of the weekend. So good stuff for the Phillies here. Obviously, don't want to bury the lead. You and I had an opportunity this weekend to go over to Citizens Bank Park, sit down with Aaron Nola. And obviously, there was a wide range of things that we covered in that interview. We're going to play that after we kind of get through the first part of our show and talk about some of the observations that we had this weekend. But in that, Anthony, there was a little bit of news, and I wasn't exactly expecting to, not that we broke the biggest story of the year or anything like that, but I wasn't really expecting to come out of that with a news item. But it's an important one for this team, and I think it kind of shapes the way that they will treat a numerous players and numerous planning, I guess, menu items as we get across the trade deadline here. So why don't we get into that first?
Yeah, and the thing, and we were not expecting this at all. I was hoping he would have given us a clue, because the one thing that Aaron talked to the media in general on Friday, so the day before, and we recorded it on Saturday. And at the Friday availability, he says a lot of the same things that he says to us in the beginning here of this interview, but there was no real timeline that had been set out for how long Nola was going to miss. We were kind of trying to figure it out. Maybe he'll be back by the All-Star break. Turns out it's longer than that. And I was hoping he would kind of, the reason I asked the question the way I did was I was hoping he would kind of give us an idea, and he did. And I was surprised by the answer. It was kind of like, oh, wow, okay. And as you'll see, he basically told us that he's going to be out of action for about 2 months. So like mid-August is when Aaron Nola is expected to be back for the Phillies. He did say he will be back this year. So for all the people who think they're just going to shut him down for the year and call it a lost season, he emphatically said, no, he will be back this year. So there's that. So that kind of makes it an interesting conversation around what the Phillies are going to do, because now you know what Nola's timeline is. It's after the trade deadline. So what do you do with a guy like Mick Abel? Like, is Mick Abel still a tradable commodity? Or do you look at it and go, we need Mick Abel because we don't know when Painter's going to be ready, and Aaron Nola is not coming back till mid-August. So what do we do? I mean, it's a good problem to have.
There's a lot of moving parts to this, and Mick Abel's obviously the one who's in probably the biggest state of flux because he'll start tonight, and we've seen some good things from him. Do I think that he's a top of the rotation piece in this moment? No. And certainly I think we saw some regression against a good Cubs offense last week, and we'll see what tonight brings against a pretty bad Marlins team. But in the short term, he's going to continue to be in this rotation. But what happens as we get into July? I mean, so what are the different possibilities here? And some of this has to do with Andrew Painter and his timeline, his arrival, and how they're going to utilize him when he comes up. But is it Mick Abel's just in this rotation? Andrew Painter comes up, they go to a 6-man because you have to be cognizant of Luzardo's innings and workload. Maybe you want to treat Andrew Painter in a cautious manner. Like, is that a possibility, or is it swapping out Abel, inserting Painter? Abel stuff, as we've talked about a couple times here, might be able to play in a bullpen situation. So do you slot him to the bullpen upon Painter's arrival, or do you look at Abel up ahead of July 31 and say this is as you just said, a tradable commodity? And so I guess there's so much that has to play out here, and I think it'd be unfair to say, what do you think is going to happen? But do you have a hunch or a lean as to how this might play out, at least in the short term, as Painter makes his way here? Because, Andrew Painter was not good. I guess that was what, Tuesday or Wednesday. He threw last week. He struggled a little bit. He was fat in the zone. He got hit around. But then yesterday he comes back, faces that same lineup, and it was really encouraging stuff. Not only just to see him bounce back and have a clean line, but to do it against the lineup and a team that had just seen him, for him to be able to show that he can make those adjustments, A, and probably the most important thing, B, also just not let things spiral out of control in a negative fashion as he's knocking on the door of the major leagues, I think says something about where he's at as well. So in terms of Andrew Painter's progress and development, thought yesterday was a key day and a really important one and a good news day for the Phillies overall.
Yeah, it really was. And, my preseason prediction for Andrew Painter was that this upcoming series against the Marlins was when he was going to make his major league debut. Obviously, that's not happening now. It looks like it is going to be in July. I kind of thought that the Phillies were teasing us with the July-ish phrase that Dave Dombrowski threw out. I thought that was kind of like, yeah, around July, but we probably would like to get him up sooner than that if we can. Turns out it's probably the other way around, that they're being a little bit more conservative with him, just want to get him where they want him to be. And the good news is, and Rob, we talked about this last week because Rob said it last Sunday, was, sometimes you like a developing pitcher to have a little bit of adversity in the minor leagues. And that way you see how they get through it. And yesterday was an example of how Painter was able to get through it. So that's a good box that they wanted to check off. Not only that, it was the first time he ever pitched, Bob, on 4 days rest at the professional level anyway. So that was kind of an important thing for the Phillies to see too. And he pitched really well. So I think he's closer than further. It's just going to be curious to see what happens.
If I put the betting line at the All-Star break, would you go before or after?
I would like to think that this has a lot to do with what happens with Mick Abel tonight and maybe his next start. So if Mick Abel comes out and rebound, like he didn't have a great start, it wasn't a bad start his last outing, but it wasn't as good as the first two, right? Let's be honest. So now you kind of want to see, how does Mick Abel respond, to the last start that he had. And so if he comes out and he rebounds nicely against the Marlins, and it looks like he's going to pitch against the Mets, right? Let's see how he does in those two. And at that point, maybe you reassess and you sit there and go, okay, Mick Abel can stick into this rotation until we need him to, because he comes out and pitched really well. 4 out of 5 starts at the major league level have been good. But if he comes out tonight and his next start against the Mets and he's not as good and he gets hit around a little bit and you start to see some question marks inside his own head kind of thing, things that like he experienced a year ago, for example, well, then maybe you get Painter up here sooner. And I think that's what's going to be the indicator.
That's fair. I think that one of the things that's really nice about this conversation as we're having it is this is sort of a luxury situation.
Yes,
You
it
look at
is.
what this rotation is doing, and I could go into Fangraphs and tell you how they have 4 guys in the National League that are top 4 in wins above replacement. Or I'm sorry, they have 4 guys that are top 20 in wins above replacement in the National League among starting pitchers, and go through all the stats. Here's all I'm going to tell you. Luzardo, Suarez, Sanchez, Wheeler, going back to the finale against the Cubs. 26 innings pitched, 18 hits allowed, 4 earned runs allowed, 1 walk allowed, 30 strikeouts. These 4 guys are damn good. They're damn good. And I'll tell you what, like we talked about Luzardo against the Cubs, and oh wow, this is a huge start for him. Bounce back, shows that this thing is fixed. Nothing to be overly concerned about. I'll go back to Saturday. I mean, how about Sanchez giving you 7? How about no walks for the first time in what feels like forever? And he gives up the 2 earned runs, and it probably should have been 1 if a play in right field gets made that the right fielder said that he shouldn't have made the play, but the manager did. So that's kind of interesting. But I mean, other than that, I mean, he was basically flawless on Saturday. And so you look at these 4 guys, and this is what, again, it's like been my mantra. It's the thing I keep coming back to. Philly swung the bats a little bit, certainly on Friday night, certainly yesterday, big day offensively. And that's great. And that makes everybody feel better. But when you sit here after a Pirates series and say, oh, this team blows, they're not going anywhere, they're going to be 500, blow it up, for those people, I'm telling you, man, I think we've just reached a point where you take for granted what you're getting out of these starters. I mean, there are years in this franchise's history where any of these 4 guys that we just named would be a clear-cut number 1 staff ace. And you've got 4 of them going back to back to back to back every single time through the rotation. It's pretty damn good. And then, oh, by the way, you have a $24 million guy in Aaron Nola waiting in the wings come August. You have one of the better pitching prospects in the game in Andrew Painter knocking on the door. And then Mick Abel's been interesting. This team has just an embarrassment of riches when it comes to the starting rotation.
No, it really does. And like you said, it's a good problem to have. The one thing that and I'm glad you mentioned Nola there at the end. And the reality of it is that, I think a lot of people just are writing him off because A, he's injured, B, got off to a terrible start this year. But as you'll see when we talk to him in this interview, like just how much of a cerebral guy he is when it comes to pitching and figuring it out. And it's why he's had sustained success in this league for so long. And you look at that track record and say, this is a guy that will figure it out. He may not be a top of the rotation guy again, but if you need to plug him into your rotation in August and give you 9 starts down the stretch, 8-9 starts down the stretch, and then into the playoffs, like, tell me another team that has that coming back, that luxury, right? At that point. I mean, that's when you talk about it's an embarrassment of riches, it really is an embarrassment of riches. And
I mean, the biggest drama is if he comes back, it becomes, certainly how effective is he, but what do you do? What do you do in a series? If you have 3 games, if you're in a wild card series, who are your 3 guys? How do you navigate that? And that's let them figure that out.
The wild card series, I think would be well, first of all, wild card series is only 3 games, but even the division series, the National League has that extra day off. Mm-hmm. Remember, we've done this a couple times, right? Yeah. We did this in 23, right? So the Phillies were able to get to the NLCS until they needed a 4th pitcher. They were able to go with 3 pitchers. Wild card division series and in the first 3 games of the NLCS before they needed a 4th pitcher. And the schedule is exactly the same this year. So you really only need 3 starters for the beginning of the playoffs. So yeah, you're right. It will be interesting to see. And again, a lot of it will be dependent upon who's healthy, who's pitching well at the time at the end of the season. There's a lot of things. It's stupid to try and sit there and try and figure out who those 3 guys are going to be and who the 4th guy would be come the NLCS at this point. I just feel like if you're looking at the whole group collectively and you say everybody's healthy, who's pitching out of the pen, who's a starting pitcher, if Nola's Nola, he's not a relief pitcher. And so therefore, I think he starts. But where in that rotation? Is he the fourth guy? Is he the third guy? I don't know.
Yeah, and I kind of throw it out there as like a general loose talking point. It's not something that I think you need to think about too deeply here. A lot can happen. A lot can change, good or bad. But it's just, I think it kind of goes to show when you start thinking about what would it look like in October, the fact that you would really have to take in this moment as you lay it out, either somebody that has a terrific pedigree or somebody that's just been phenomenal on the mound this season and say, sorry, you're the odd guy out in this scenario. It just kind of shows you the overall strength of this rotation. And it's why I continue to just come back to, they're a playoff team. I don't know if they're going to beat the Mets. I don't know if they're going to win the division. I think they have a shot, right? But I just don't see this catastrophic drop off the way that other people seem to.
Yeah. I mean, Bob, you know what?
That being said, I think a lot of the people that were saying that a week ago are now the same people that are like, they're back. We got this. Let's go. Yeah. It's those people that are just swinging from one extreme to another.
Of course. And, we heard, how much have we heard this year? Well, the Phillies just beat up on bad teams. They can't beat good teams. Well, you know what their record is against teams with winning records now? 21 and 19.
Yeah.
They're above 500 against above 500 teams. That's pretty darn good.
I believe after the Giants lost yesterday, so things jumbled a little bit. Milwaukee at the start of the day did not have a winning record against plus 500 teams, but now I think they do based on what happened yesterday. But I think the Phillies currently have the third best record in the National League against teams with winning records. Yeah. It's the Dodgers, it's the Mets, it's the Phillies. So, and by the way, they're like within one game of each other. So it's not like, the Dodgers are out there and they're 37-10 against teams over 500 and the Phillies are 21-19. They're all right there. So again, that is a stupid talking point. I hate it. I tried to actually discredit that this weekend. I had tweeted that out over the weekend and
So we got a couple people who are excited, Bob. Ryan Barnhart says we are so back, right? And then even Smy Guy says, well, this was a follow-up to another thing I'm going to bring up later that he said about the Nola interview. Plus, he says the Phillies are back. And now this is one thing I did want to get into before we get to the Nola interview, and I'm glad Jerry brings it up. He said, I thought Otto Kemp's game yesterday was very promising, and I think show himself, hey, I can do it here at this level. So I just wanted to kind of get into him a little bit because a 4-hit game in your 7th career major league game, and like the first player since 1940 for the Phillies anyway to have 2 3-hit games in his first week as a major leaguer, like that's pretty good. That's pretty impressive. Even though he can't play the field, it's pretty impressive.
I guess the way that I look at it, it is impressive. And you go 4 for 5 and you look up and you're hitting 345 all of a sudden pretty early into your career. What I'd like to ask him is to what extent does that matter? Because in time, talent takes over. You get hundreds of at-bats. It really just becomes about how you can handle pitching, what you do. But does it take some of the pressure off so early in your career where you don't have to look up at the scoreboard and see 81 and be like, I know I can do this. The numbers say I cannot or I have not yet, but I've got it. Is it easier to look up and say 345, couple good at bats against Paul Skeens? The numbers bear out what I already know, which is I can do it. And does that help you get into your progression a little bit quicker? And does it make the start of your career a little bit easier knowing like the results have backed it up?
Yeah. And I think it helps too, Bob, that he's playing every game. Like he's not platooning. He's not only playing against lefty. He's facing everybody pretty much because they need him to, with Bryce out of the lineup. But yeah, I do think it helps. I mean, I think that when you come in and you're, trying to take it all in and then you have immediate success, we're going to hear, Russ is complaining in the comments that we haven't started the interview yet, but we're going to hear you asked Nola this question about momentum, right? And is it a real thing? And he talks about that, about how it is a real thing. And I think for an individual, it's real too, because it's all about confidence. You go up there feeling like I'm going to get a hit. I'm going to get a hit today. And look, he's hitting 345. I think 4 of his hits so far this year have been infield hits, where he's legged it out a little bit, but
That's
you take them.
That's the thing.
You take them.
It's okay to say great start. This is a fun story.
Yeah.
He's helping them. He's injected some of the energy that we were talking about last week. It's a fresh face, fresh vibe. We don't have to get carried away and be like, well, what do you do with Otto Kemp when Bryce Harper returns? Like, let's just let it breathe, see where we're at in probably a couple weeks. I'm guessing when you'll have to make that decision. We don't have to put him in the Hall of Fame today. We can also be excited about what we've seen from him. Everything is just find the balance.
Yeah. All right. So Russ goes, where's the interview? Okay. And like I said, Smy Guy said he's excited for the interview because Nola is one of his favorite players. And I think that the guys do a great job interviewing players. Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Thanks. Although I will tell you, I'm going to get out ahead of this now. I'm like LSU. He's from the South. God, I love college football. Yeah. And, up here, you can't find college football people. So I'm like, let's shoot the shit on college football a little bit. He goes, nah, not really. I'm like a college football guy. I'm like, oh, come on, dude. I'm like ready to talk about Clemson, LSU, August 30th. Like, let's do it, Nah, I really college football guy. I'm like, okay, all right.
It was all right. I was at the end of the interview. It's fine. By that point, everything will be. We got all the good baseball stuff out of the way. All right, let's throw it to the Aaron Nola interview. The one thing I want to say is we did have very minor technical problem with one of the mics, so it sounds clear. You'll be able to hear it. It just won't be as podcasty clear as normal podcasts are. But just so you know, we had to use backup microphones for the interview. But anyway, without further ado,
welcome into Phightin Words, and we have a very special guest on the podcast today. Phillies pitcher Aaron Nola. Aaron, thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate your time today.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we probably have to start with what everybody's talked about with you. I know we talked about it yesterday with everybody, but obviously the injury situation, now that you have a stress fracture in your rib, can you kind of take us through that, like what you know, what you can talk about it, and where you're at this point?
Yeah, well, with the injury, stress reaction or stress fracture, I don't really know the difference too much, but no, this is the first injury with something like that I've ever had, so that's kind of new to me. At first I thought it might have been a strained muscle or something muscular, which to me is not really a big deal, but it was news. It was news to me with the stress fracture. I really wasn't expecting that, but just kind of felt it, I guess, a little bit more when I started to ramp back up. When my ankle was feeling better, when I started throwing the bullpens. I threw 2 bullpens, and my second bullpen before we left for Toronto, felt a little more, but it went away, and thought everything was good, and then flew in and started hurting, so I knew kind of something wasn't right, and obviously trying to do treatment and everything and to get it right, and it wasn't really subsiding, so that's when we got the MRI, and so it came back as that, so which was a surprise. But things like that come up. Obviously, it's been a long time since I've been on the IL, and obviously never want to end up on the IL. I want to be out there pitching and like I usually do, but sometimes as ball players we hit these bumps in the road that we're not used to, and we gotta figure out how to get over them, and try to stay as positive as possible, and take rehab in a good way to learn about my body a little bit more, to learn about myself a little bit more, and just to really try to get this thing right, and hopefully it doesn't come back. And that's kind of my main focus. And since I have the rib thing now, I have a little more time for my ankle to get better, so I really want to get these things knocked out as quick as possible, but as smart as possible, so they don't come back.
Now, I know it's frustrating, right? But at the same time, you look at it and say, this isn't anything that's devastating. Like you're going to be back pitching again, and it's just a matter of just as long as they get healthy, and then you will be back. Like we're not being wrong by saying we're going to see Aaron Nola pitch again this year, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm very blessed. It's not a big injury.
Right.
It's something small, and probably I guess 2 months-ish or so I'll be out, which is a long time, but it's better than a big injury. So I'm really grateful it's not that.
Cool.
Do you feel like there's
any possibility where you can make a positive out of it, where like, all right, if the timeline, let's just use 2 months as like the mile marker, right? You come back and it's like, hey, I'm fresh going into late August, into September, into October, hopefully, right, for you guys. I mean, like, I guess it's actually twofold. One, what are you doing to stay sharp, like mentally? Like, obviously you're doing all the rehab work, so right, like what does it look like to stay engaged in terms of like game planning, preparation, kind of keep yourself mentally sharp? And then two, like as you near and you start to ramp back up physically, do you look at it and say like, hey, I can learn something out of this, I can kind of spin this positively down the stretch?
Absolutely can learn from it, and I've been trying to learn from it as much as possible, because body-wise and stuff like that, I really try to learn about my body as much as I can, because I feel like being a pitcher is one thing, and that's our job, right? But it's also my job to educate myself on my body, because for me, that's how I stay pitching and I stay healthy. So that's another part of my job that I've always incorporated and took a lot of time to learn about myself, and it's working with, my masseuse and trainer back home that I've been with for a long time, and our trainers here, our strength coaches here, our masseuse here, to really learn about myself and be sharp. If something does come up, I know exactly what it's stemming from and how I can fix it really quick, so I can be ready for that game when they give me the ball. But yeah, just also trying to stay sharp mentally, watching the games still, being present with that. I feel like being on rehab and doing all the work in the training room, I feel like it could be easy to separate myself from the game, but for me, I enjoy watching the game. I enjoy watching our guys go pitch and our guys play, so that's one thing. And then I'm still able to work out, so there's certain workouts I can't do because it irritates my rib a little bit, so I still am able to run a little bit and do some agility stuff like I will today, and then do leg workouts and some upper body workouts, some arm care, which is important. I'm really glad I'm able to do that. So that's kind of how all that's going right now. And then the hardest thing I think is not being able to throw. So I can't throw right now. So that's a tough one, but I'm obviously going to have to throw some bullpens and rehab games and some probably little IBPs and work myself back up and get conditioned again on the mound.
You've always been a guy who is very in tune with your body. I mean, we've talked about this previously before about like that's how important that is to pitching, really, right? When you have an injury like this, do you suddenly learn new things that maybe you didn't know before about your body? And I mean, I'm not saying I'm asking for specifics, but like look at it and go, oh wow, I didn't, as much as I've trained, as much as I've done, there's even something there that I didn't know about before that I now have to think about going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I never had something with my rib,
Right.
like I thought it would probably be muscular or a strain or something. So that's new to me, and now I know like what could cause that, right? Possibly. I don't know exactly what would cause it, but probably just throwing a lot, I guess. But obviously you're going to be more cognizant of that, and if I feel something right there, then I could know what it could possibly be. So obviously I think the most we learn is when we struggle and when things pop up, like when you're hurt.
Yeah.
So sometimes you do kind of feel invincible in a sort of way, to where you don't land on the IL often, and you just keep pitching and pitching and playing, and sometimes you don't think, you feel good all the time, so you don't think things are going to happen, and so things happen. So really got to try to stay humble in that and stay course with that stuff.
You get to the last start you made against St. Louis, but prior to that, you were really kind of turning a corner with where your season was. Did you feel like you were figuring it out? Like, is it especially frustrating, the timing of this, because it was like, hey, I've kind of strung together some pretty good starts here. I'm going the right way, directionally. And I mean, like, do you think like the adjustments that you were making from the beginning of the season it's like something that, I have to ramp back up, I have to restart here, but I can take what I was
figuring out and reapply when I do start back up?
Absolutely. For me right now, not being able to throw, I think it's just thinking about that and really trying to feel that without throwing and being on the mound. And I feel like I can do that. And I take away from my last 2 bullpens before this rib injury. I had good bullpens and I felt really good. Body and mechanics felt really good. So I just want to try to take that and think about that for when I get back into throwing and apply that again.
You've always talked about being a feel guy when you pitch.
Yeah.
Maybe if you can take the viewers or listeners through. So you said that sometimes you need to feel what's wrong to know how to do it right.
Right.
So it's almost like failure is a building block for the successes that you have. Can you talk about what that feels like, whether it's in a bullpen or even during a game, what you feeling was wrong and say, okay, I know I have to fix that. Like what goes through your mind at that point?
Yeah, I tried to do that a long time ago on bullpens, and that's kind of how I was taught when I first came up. Bullpens or work days. I like throwing bullpens. Some guys don't. So I always wanted to go into a bullpen, and if I wasn't doing good, I wasn't having a good one, I wasn't feeling much, I would kind of take a second stop and try to figure out what was going wrong in the bullpen and try to finish up and have a good bullpen. Because I feel like that can apply to the game mount. And there's a lot of times where I don't feel right on something in the game mount and I need to figure it out real quick. And if I do that in the bullpen, then I know how to fix it in the game. So that's kind of how I think about the bullpens a lot. I don't just go in and throw it. I always have a plan going into it. What I need to work on. If something wasn't as sharp in the game before, I take it into the bullpen and work on that. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but there's times where I need to feel that wrong in order, and then do the right. I'm like, okay, that feels wrong. I need to X that out, and this is what I need to do. So for me, mentally, if I'm on the mound and I feel that, okay, that's wrong.
Yeah,
this one's right.
Makes sense. You're coming up on 10-year service time, I think, end of this month, right? You're the second longest tenured Philadelphia athlete. I think only Sean Couturier from the Flyers has been here longer. When you have downtime, and I don't, obviously you're in the middle of the season, maybe you don't think about these things now, but do you think about what it means to be tenured with one organization for that long? I mean, it doesn't happen in baseball. It used to happen a lot more. I don't know, is there 6 or 7 guys now in Major League Baseball who have been with a team that long? Like, what is that? Do you think about that and what that means? Like, is that special to you?
Sometimes I think about it.
Yeah.
It is special. Absolutely. I'm very grateful that Philadelphia wanted to sign me back. Obviously wanted to come back here, and I want to finish my career out here. And like you said, there's not many guys nowadays that stay with one team. It was more prevalent back in the day, and guys would stay with one team for a long time. Guys are playing, 18 to 20 years with the same team, which that's remarkable. But to be with one organization is awesome, and brings back a lot of memories too. I was coming up on 10 years, and I look back, and first time I ever stepped into the city of Philadelphia, it was a culture shock, and going through the minor leagues and meeting, some of my best friends that I've ever made and played with, going through minor leagues and those years up here, the rebuilding years. Been through a lot up here, and I'm grateful to be able to be a part of a rebuilding era and a era to where we're winning, getting to a World Series and not even coming last in the division. So
right.
It's funny to listen to you talk about this because, like, as I was prepping for this, I read the Players Tribune letter that you wrote that was like published back in like 2019, and you're talking about like your evolution in Philly and trying to get accustomed to the culture and all that stuff. And I mean, that probably feels like ages ago. I mean, that's before before the craziness of 2020, the runs that you guys have gone on. I mean, it's like part one, and this is like part two. You still have the camper on the truck? Is that still happening? You're talking about having a camper?
It's in the fan. I gave it to my brother.
Okay.
I have a van now.
Okay.
Yeah, the camper. I remember writing that. I remember sitting down and writing that little story type thing, and it's crazy, man. Like, this is my second home, and obviously spent a lot of my career here, and it goes by quick. Gosh, it's going by quick, and it's just wild how early on up here guys were kind of just coming in and out. You know, we were rebuilding and getting guys in, they would come out, getting more guys in, come out, and then 21, 22 hit, and they were kind of like same group of guys that's starting that kind of trend.
Did you see it coming? Like in 2021, you're missing as a team. Did you feel like we're about to put this together?
I think at 19, when we got JT and Bryce came, like, okay, this is different. And then obviously 20 was weird, and then 21 we're better, and then 22 we got more guys in, and then went on that run and got really hot, and that kind of set the stage. I feel like.
But when you think back about it, and you look, like you said, you've been here through the bad times, you've been here through the good times. Do you think, when it's all said and done, do you think about what legacy is going to be like for you? I mean, whether it's 15 years in one city, if there's a championship involved, if there's not, like how do you want to be remembered in that kind of situation?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that, to be honest with you. I feel like you'll always be remembered as a team if you win a World Series or a championship. And
Right.
I know that. Teams that have won championships over here, that's obviously the goal.
Right.
That's why we play. And going through a rebuilding era and a non-rebuilding era, like, you want to win, and we want to win. And guys will play their whole career and never win a World Series. They'll play 20 years and never win a World Series. Some guys will play their first year and win a World Series. So it's hard, but that's always the goal. Like, we want to win, and because the last championship I won was in high school.
Right.
But even that was, you win with a team and you're always close, and this is magnified times 100.
Right.
You win with a team in the major leagues or any other sports, football or basketball or hockey around here. You have that special connection. Have a special connection with your team and the fan base, and I think that would be amazing. So that's always a goal.
One of the things that we said a couple years ago was said, if this team wins a championship, because of the connection you guys have in that clubhouse, it may be the most beloved championship team this city has ever seen. Not just because, we want the Phillies to win, but we want these guys specifically to win. Do you feel that in the clubhouse as well? And I guess secondarily, and this is kind of where I want to go with the question, is it a little bit different this year in there? Because it seems a little bit more focused, a little bit more, this is the real goal, and not so much as we're having a lot of fun and the vibes and all that other stuff you heard people talk about for the last several years. Like, do you feel that, and do you feel being a little bit more focused this year?
Yeah, I think we still need to have fun.
Yeah.
And obviously we're close.
Yeah.
We have the same team for the past 3-4 years, and pretty much. And I think in 22, when we got to the World Series, it's like, all right, we got here, we know what it feels like. It's kind of what we want to expect out of ourselves, to get back there. And coming up short in 23, and then a little bit shorter last year, I think it makes it harder. It makes it harder when you lose out earlier, because the playoffs are so great, and the World Series is so great. And I think it's more of a business part of it, to where we focus part of it. I mean, not a business part of it, but the focus part. It's like we want to get back there, and and
did that work against you guys to a degree last year? Like, do you feel? I mean, we talk all the time. Like, we do a podcast, so I think probably 60% of the stuff that we talk about, if you guys listen to it, you'd be like, it's not how it works, right? Like, you know, I'm sure. And like, so that being said, though, like, was there a little bit too much? Like, we got to get back. Like, I remember walking out of here, Game 7, the NLCS, and him and I walked out of the stadium together, and we were both in the clubhouse. And I remember looking at you, looking at some other guys, and I'm like, it's like they saw ghosts. Like, and I can't imagine the impact that had on you guys after losing that series. And like, does it almost like work against you, where like, is it harder to stay in the moment and like stay in the process in the day to day because you're like, we got to get back? Like, do you feel like that kind of like, did that happen last year? Like, you know, the second half kind of like up and down, people made a lot about that, or was this all just nonsense that people like him and I talk about?
Yeah, I don't think it was. You know, as a lot of people know, when you get to the playoffs, like everything's out the window. You know, it's like a whole new season. It is what it feels like to me. You know, and it's a long season, 162 games, of course. People always talk about, you know, it's better to be in a wild card because, you know, you get hotter and you got that momentum going in the DS. But I've been in both. We've all been in both. And yeah, wild card's great, but you can also lose in 2 games, right? You know, and not even get to the DS. So yeah, you want to win your division for sure. That's the way I look at it. Is there something said about being in a wild card and having momentum going into DS? Sure, if you win it, you know. And we've been lucky enough to win our wild card games, but I think winning the division last year, I think is better because you're for sure going to the DS. And yeah, you know, the Mets played really good. You know, they obviously had momentum going in from the wild card.
What does that feel like? Like, we talk about momentum, like, is it real? Like, do you just know? Or are you looking at somebody across the clubhouse and going like, we're going to get these guys today? Like, what does
momentum
that
is
feel
real?
Like?
Absolutely, momentum is real in the playoffs. Momentum is real during the season. It's real in every sport, I believe. And some guys might think about it different, but you do feel kind of like that when you're going into a game. But there's no guarantees. Anything can happen in the playoffs, you know, anything. And, you know, that's the beauty of the game. And that's why every pitch matters, every run matters, everything matters, and it's all heightened a little bit more. And that's why it's a beautiful thing, and that's why the playoffs are the best. And, you know, hopefully we get back there and, you know, have a good rest of the season, and obviously hopefully win a division again, and then go from there.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about, as you know, it's been made so many times, people said, well, the best thing about Aaron is he's a durable pitcher. He gives you, you know, you're going to get him out there every start, obviously pre-injury. Is that also, is that, as much as that's a blessing, is that also a little bit of a curse in the sense that the way that the game has gone now, so many pitchers rely on velocity, and you're not a big velocity guy. And every one of these hitters, or most of these hitters, have seen you 40, 50 times at the plate. Like, they kind of know what you're going to do. You kind of know what they're going to do. Like, how does the strategy for you change, knowing a guy knows who you are and how you're going to pitch?
It all goes down to execution.
Right.
And, you know, that's one of the things when you do pitch a lot. You face teams a lot, you face guys a lot. But that also, you know, makes it fun at times, because now you got to figure a different way out to get them out. And it's challenging sometimes more than others. But I mean, that's part of it. You know, that's part of the game. That's part of you know, me wanting to pitch every time and putting a lot of time into keeping myself healthy and going out there. And yeah, velocity is very prevalent nowadays, and you know, there's sometimes I do wish I had that a little bit more off on it in games to when I need it. But I mean, you look at Ranger last night.
Yeah.
You know, he's barely hit 92, but he's throwing 4 pitches for strikes and strikeouts and getting like the weakest contact I've ever seen him get. And it's just because he's so good at adding and subtracting and keeping that ball off the barrel, man. And, you know, he's going deep in the games, and that's what we saw from him, especially the first half last year. He's just rolling, and he's got all his pitches working, and he's pinpointing with a lot of them. So yeah, it makes it a little bit harder when you, like for me, when I'm not, having the command, because when you do leave balls over the plate nowadays, guys have seen you more, and they're not missing that much over the plate. So it's a happy medium.
How much you got here?
Like 5 minutes at the most.
Very cognizant of your time. Appreciate it. Plus some quick hitters here.
Go ahead.
Want to do that?
Go ahead.
LSU guy. You dialed in the College World Series at all?
Not yet.
No, all right.
Not yet.
You got Arkansas today. Now, are you I don't know, 2-time SEC Pitcher of the Year and all? You college football guy?
I used to be.
Really?
I haven't really been much. Haven't been much.
Got your team. I was getting ready. I'm a huge college football guy. I've been a big SEC football guy too. Total fraud. I've been down there, everything like that. I just love it. So I was geared up to
great.
LSU, Clemson.
Yeah, college football's great. When I was there, I was big into it, obviously, and then my first few years out of college, I was big into it. Just because I still knew guys over there.
Right.
Same with baseball too. But yeah, I'm gonna watch the College World Series.
I think it's the most underrated tournament or playoff or whatever.
College World Series?
Yeah, I think it's so crazy what happens in the College World Series.
It's crazy,
and the intensity of it. Like, you just watch these games, it's like, man, if you're not watching, you don't know what you're missing. Like, how cool.
Where are you at on the theatrics of baseball? I see it. I used to be a high school varsity coach, and I I wanted my guys to talk a little bit as long as it was within reason, and I know you're more on the quiet side, but you watch college baseball now. It's crazy. It's all over the place. Guys are screaming at each other, yapping, pounding their chest, flipping bats 40 feet into the air. What's your thought on all that?
It's really different. It's really different than when I came up. I had coaches that, I feel like taught us how to act and, respect the game and respect your opponent. Theirs was yapping from dugout to dugout every now and again, but not every game like it is going on now, every game. And
do you think it's changing at the major league level at all? Is that trickled in with the younger players, or is it kind of like now once you're up here, people say, hey, real quick, you got to do it the right way?
I feel like you don't really see it much up here, and it's definitely drastic from the major leagues to college right now. Major leagues, you don't really see it that much, especially the talking and stuff. But the college game right now is, I don't know if that had to do anything with the new portal or the NIL money and stuff like that. Maybe
to a degree.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm glad I got out of college when I got out. So
I don't know if I can see Aaron Nola out there on the mound, the guy's pounding his chest and flipping the bat.
Yeah,
I don't know what that will look like.
It just wasn't my. It's not. It's not my thing, honestly, and it wasn't back then. And I grew up watching kind of the older school guys, and my brother go to LSU, and that stuff never happened.
Are you when you have downtime during the season? Obviously now being injured, maybe you have a little bit more. Do you watch anything? Are you into any shows on TV? Are you streaming anything that's you should recommend to people? Or?
Honestly, ever since I had a kid, I haven't hardly watched TV at all.
I hear that.
We don't even turn the TV on in our house. I hear that. Every now and again, I watch that show Alone.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever seen Alone?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm on watching the season 11 right now.
Okay.
In the Arctic Circle. So I enjoy watching that show.
That's pretty wild. Yeah. I guess ever since now you get to celebrate Father's Day.
Yeah.
So happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's
Day. We all get to celebrate that. My kids are a little bit older, so it's all right.
Yeah,
this is my Father's Day gift: is to get out of the house for 2 hours to do this.
It's really cool.
Yeah, happy Father's Day to y'all too.
Yeah,
it's great.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Well, Aaron, listen, we really do appreciate your time. Thank you so very much for coming on the show. Best of luck. Get well soon. I know the fans would love to see you back out
I
there.
appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
All right, that was our Aaron Nola interview there. Anthony, you're muted, I believe, so we couldn't hear you kick it back.
There we go. I thought I hit unmute, but I guess
there you are. So, you know, obviously very appreciative of Aaron giving us, I think it was about a half hour there almost. And I did not know. He could have said any show on earth, and I would have at least known what it was, except for Alone. I was like, I don't know this one. History Channel.
Yeah.
I went and looked it up. 12 seasons. It's been around forever. I never heard of it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've checked it out like once. I never really got into it. Not to say that I wouldn't like it. Maybe I will. But maybe I'll go back and, you know, the fact that he's 11 seasons in, you know, that was maybe it's worth checking out if it's survived that long. It means people must like it, right?
Yeah. You know, watching the interview, that was the first time I had kind of looked at it at length. You know, there were things that I would have loved to have gotten into, you know, and sometimes the conversation just flows a certain way and you're like, well, I don't think that this really fits in the context of what we're talking about. But one of the things that I will say, and the biggest takeaway from me after it ended, was to kind of echo your point at the top. There is this idea out here that he's cooked in 2025. Like, we're not going to see him again until next year. And if we do, it's going to be in a meaningless capacity. Like, look, I don't know how his rehab's going to go, and I don't know what the progression of it will be, but I think there's every intention that he is back in mid-August, and I think that he's very much a part of their plan.
Yes,
that was my biggest takeaway, because he could have been more evasive. He could have been certainly. I mean, he knows the deal. He knows how to do it. He could have left some things open and kind of been a little bit more uncertain about it, but I mean, he gives you a timeline. He says, yeah, I'm coming back. So I think that kind of leaves no doubt in terms of what the intention is.
Yeah, for sure. And it was interesting to get his take on certain things, like you talked about, like when you asked about momentum, you know, and we talked about that beforehand a little bit with talking about Otto Kemp, right? I mean, like that's a thing, and you know, and I love listening to him talk. One of my favorite things when I talk to him down at the ballpark, just in general, and I usually try to grab him on an off day when he's not, you know, try not to talk to him on his bullpen day, or, you know, obviously you can't talk to a guy before a game that they start, but, you know, maybe one of the off days in between, just kind of getting into his mind about like what you do as a pitcher. Like I've always been fascinated by pitchers. Never, when I played, I was not a pitcher. But I've always just been fascinated by, you know, their adjustments, what they're working on and things like that. Just kind of talking to him, and he really kind of gets into the details. Like, we didn't even ask him about, he once told me about how he changed his curveball from what it was when he was taught it by his dad. His dad taught him to throw it like a football, right? So his grip on the baseball was like you would hold a football and throw it like you're throwing a football. And he says he changed it in, I think it was 2018, 17, 18, I forget what year it was, that he changed it to a spiked curveball. So where he puts the one finger up on the top of the ball. And he throws it, and he says, I was just playing around with it one day, and I realized, oh, wow, I got a lot more break on that, you know, and he's able to control it even more than what he had been throwing his whole life. Like, it's like little things like that that they constantly tinker with. And I just find that I geek out over that stuff, Bob. I really do. And he's great to talk about.
Well, as soft-spoken as he is, I would say he's soft-spoken. He's very articulate, and he gives you a lot. Like we talked about on Friday, like he runs the ball. He controls the ball. Like you ask him a question, and it's not a 4-second response, and you're like, okay, now what? Like he goes. Yeah. And you know, this is Jerry Martin here. So I love the one thing I wish you would have asked about is how he stays on top of his mental health and what he would say to all the doubters. And, you know, along those lines, that was one place I kind of thought the conversation might get to. Like, you've been here. You asked about legacy and being in one place. And he has a very favorable, at least, you know, outwardly, he has a very favorable opinion of the city. And I don't think that he would have resigned here if he didn't, you know, in his heart. But he takes a lot of shit. You know, when things don't go well, people are quick to come at him. And I am guilty of that myself, right? Like, where it's like, come on, man, like you got to be better than this. We need more. And I wanted to find a way to maybe tap on the door of that a little bit and be like, what What's it like here when you make a bad start and you say, Nola, he has to be aware of that. I think to a degree. And how does he deal with that?
I do wonder though, and I wish we would have went there too. You're right. And I think that we were planning on kind of getting there, and then it just kind of, a conversation takes a turn and just never went back to it. But I do wonder sometimes, just by, when he comes out and he's introduced in a stadium, and the way that the crowd gets really loud for him when Dan Baker says Aaron Nola, and it's like they go crazy. I wonder if it's I'm not trying to downplay the fact that there are people out there who don't like Nola or who give him a lot of shit, but I do wonder if it's more of a more vocal minority, and that the majority of people who watch Phillies games or who are Phillies fans still really, really, really like the guy. Yeah. And I do think that that's just, it could be like the whole talk radio mentality of.
Well, it's like, how do you compartmentalize it? I think that most people in the city, even if they grow tired of Aaron Nola or frustrated by Aaron Nola or whatever the case may be, I think everyone would acknowledge he seems like an awesome dude, right? Yeah, it's like you like the person. I think and I don't want to go down this road today, but I think in 2025, it's probably very difficult to be a professional athlete, because if you can stay big picture and say, all right, I hear some boos, or, even I turn on sports talk radio and they're talking about how I'm not going well right now. You still have to deal with that. You still have to navigate that as a professional athlete. But when you start to bring in the social media part of it, and you start to bring in specifically the Twitter part of it, and how nasty people can be and how much they can sort of amplify that frustration, and sometimes it crosses lines. And I think for players in general, that's got to be tough. And I think some of them probably entirely block it out, delete social media. They will not consume it in any capacity. Others are probably on their phone looking at what everybody's saying about them all the time, good and bad. And I think that the mental health, and I know some of the writers around the sport and really all the professional leagues have tapped into this a little bit in recent years, but I think it's probably got to be one of the most difficult things to deal with, is just the way that you're talked about and received. And, criticism's fair. Yeah. But, sometimes it isn't.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. And that's, that's why I think that we toe that line very well. Like, there's good criticism on this show, and I think that it's deserved when it's said. But at the same time, we're not going to go overboard with it.
Yeah,
right?
I have to think back through and there's been plenty of criticisms and many warranted. I don't know that I've ever gotten off a show and said like, that was unfair. That was too much.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what our jobs are, Bob. Right. That's what we do for a living is to offer unbiased perspective. And when someone's not going well, we're going to say it. But at the same time, we're not sitting there. And I've said this before. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but these are the best players in the world at what they do. Right. Like, you could say a guy stinks, but it's hyperbolic in a sense, because it's not 100%. It stinks for that level, but in the reality, they're better than 99.9% of the rest of the baseball players that do what they do, right? So, I don't know.
I would be tough. If I were a pro athlete, I think I would be a guy that would sign all the autographs, and you'd say overall pretty good guy. I'd struggle with the online component of it too. And I would tell you, if I were a highly compensated pro athlete, I'd be like, made $24 million in change this year. I don't give a shit what you think about me.
Correct.
Come on.
I always wished. I told my kids this. I said, when they were growing up and they were playing sports, like, hey, whatever. And I said, I wish I could put my mind into your body, because like my son Anthony was a far better baseball player than I was. I was decent, but he was much better than me. But I always felt like that he didn't deal with adversity well. And I would say, I wish I could put my mind in yours and combine the two. Like, I really feel like I would be the same way, Bob. Like, nothing that anybody says ever really bothers me. Like, I've come back at people on social media a few times, but it's more because I like pushing back and not because it's bothering me. I don't take any offense at anything anybody says. I mean, people have called me fat. People have called me an idiot. Like, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. Like, it's what it is. What it is.
It was me
right?
after a couple of beers on Saturday night. Actually, didn't I text you that? So, look, dude. One thing I will say, like, I want to bring up one more thing. Maybe get to one last thing. If there's anything else you want to hit on, but just kind of off of the criticism thing, the guy that I've been very critical of on this show is Alec Bohm. And
been good.
Alec Bohm hit a ball yesterday. Do you remember? It was 2022. They had just gotten back to the postseason, and I want to say it was the Friday night. It was either against the Braves on a Friday or it was against the Padres on a Friday, and I believe it was the NLCS. It was deeper in the playoffs, and it was a nice night. And they're taking batting practice, and we're watching Alec Bohm hit balls off the front of the facade out in left field, right? And I'm like, come on, like, you have this in you. Why don't you do this more? And I know BP is not a game, but like, it's there. And yesterday he hit a ball like that. And I have not seen that guy hit a baseball the way he did yesterday since that BP in the playoffs a couple of years ago. And I always just like, it always stuck out to me. Now all of a sudden, he's got 7 home runs, which is not great, but it's not 1 home run in a minor league ballpark. And over the last 5 games, he's knocked in 9 runs. It took him the previous 25 games to knock in 9 runs. And like, yes, it might just be a little bit of a hot stretch, but when you look at what he's been able to do since May 1st, batting average is well over 300. And now you're starting to see some run production mixed in. Do you just kind of look at it and say like, yeah, but this is still what he is? Or are you starting to say now, like, it's playing up a little bit? You pull the ball in the air, like, and I don't want to be condescending about it, but like, that is the criticism. He's been a slap hitter, so much so that when you're hitting 320 and your OPS is sitting in mid 800s, it's because you don't walk, you're not hitting for a lot of extra base hits, but it's picking up a little bit now. Like,
I mean, the biggest criticism I've always had of him is that, and you should never have this, in my mind, like, pull side, he's terrible. Like that's the thing. Like, to me, you should always be strong to your pull side and have to work on being a complete hitter that hits up the middle, that hits opposite way, right? Like, the pull side should be the easy part. And he doesn't have the pull side. The pull side is beat the ball into the ground. And that, to me, has been the one major criticism I've had of Alec Bohm. I wish that he would do that more often, where he elevates balls or drives balls to his pull side and doesn't worry about hitting those little dink and dunkers the opposite way, right? Like, I'm not saying all the time, find that happy medium, be able to take that outside pitch and go the other way, okay, fine. But if they come in on you, just say, all right, I'm going to get those wrists through and I'm just going to rip it and see what happens. Like, I wish he did that more as opposed to inside outing, trying to inside out that pitch or beating it into the ground.
The numbers are just crazy to look at. Like, over his last 30 games, he's knocked in 11 runs over his last 15, but over his last 30 games, he's hitting 319. He only has a 355 on base percentage, like, which is good. That's a solid on base percentage, but you have to hit 319 to do it. And then you're hitting 319 and you have a 500 slugging percentage. Like, come on. Like, you're hitting 320. The numbers, the other numbers should be up there, Yeah. And maybe he just hits 330 for the rest of the season. Maybe that's what he's going to do, and this all works. But that's been the biggest difference. You're getting some extra base production out of Kepler, and Bohm is starting to knock in runs, and that, to me, has been the biggest difference in this offense for the last 6 games or so.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it's not like they're doing it against a bunch of slugs. I mean, yeah, the Cubs starting pitching isn't great.
No, but Gosman's been good, and Barrios has been very good.
Yeah.
He's tough.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
you give him that.
Yeah, you absolutely have to. All right, looking ahead, Bob, 4 games here in Miami before the big series against the Mets, which we had a guy check in during the Aaron Nola interview, Sean Kleckner, who says beat the Mets next weekend and then I'll start believing again, which I don't understand that. I mean, and that's just because, let's say you lose 2 out of 3 to the Mets. Is that worse than getting swept by the Pirates? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand why regular season games against good teams matter.
I'm torn on this because if you get to a place in the standings where, numerically it doesn't really make or break your season, that's part of it. Like where if they were 6 games back coming into that series, I'd say, hey, you've
right.
Go a little bit. So that's part of it. Listen, the Mets swept them earlier this year. It was embarrassing. The way that they played against that team in October, it was embarrassing. And it's the Mets, right? A team that you sit here and talk about all the time. God, it's the Mets. Yeah. So, losing to the Mets, it's tough to stomach, and it doesn't make you feel good about what things look like moving forward. I understand that. And certainly their division rival, you want to owe them one, you want to pay them back. I get that. That being said, I'll tap into something. I was very late to the party. My wife went to sleep early the other night, and I watched The Comeback, the 3-part Red Sox Netflix documentary. And, obviously they have this rivalry. It's very one-sided. The Yankees bounced the Red Sox in 2003, and then everybody talks about the comeback in 2004 where the Red Sox finally get by the Yankees, win the World Series. But even if you go back, the Red Sox are in a similar situation to the Phillies in that they're like 8 games over, 11 games over, 12 games over, and they're playing meaningful games against the Yankees at the peak of that rivalry, and the Yankees are just taking it to them. Like they're just beating the piss out of the Red Sox the year they win the World Series. And that was the thing. You got to the deadline and you're like, this team just doesn't have it. The Yankees just own this team. And then lo and behold, they end up beating them in the playoffs, historic fashion, win the World Series. And like, that's one example, and it's fairly anecdotal, but if the Phillies lose 2 out of 3 to the Mets this weekend, like it doesn't necessarily mean anything. As much as I will be very annoyed if they don't play well this weekend. I think that's fair. But when you step back and go like, well, they won 2 out of 3 versus they lost 2 out of 3, unless they lose a division by a game, like it doesn't really matter.
Right. Exactly. That's the point I wanted to make. But before that, you got to get through 4 in Miami, and which is never an easy thing to do. Play down there in that hellhole.
That line's a little light tonight. Philly's like -118 against Alcantara.
Yeah, and he's not been good, but whatever. I still think the Phillies will win this series. I think they take 3 out of 4. I do think there's a trip-up game in here at some point. Like I don't know when it is. It could be tonight. And that's more because I don't know what Mick Abel's bounce back is going to look like. In all honesty, like it could be great, and it could not be great, right? I mean,
I'm not worried about like the Phillies falling asleep in Miami thing necessarily, like that storyline. But big weekend, playing well, big offensive output. Alcantara's name is getting floated around in trade rumors. He should be revitalized by that. I just don't know. I just don't love the spot tonight. I would like to tell you that, the Phillies should win all 4 of these games. When you look at them one by one, I don't think that Abel's going to blow up tonight or anything like that. I could just see like the kind of annoying 5-3 loss tonight. I don't know. But I think when you look at the series, you should win this series. Like you find a way to win 3 out of 4. And they've done a good job against bad teams. And I will say that they've done a good job recently here, dating back to last season and into this one against bad opponents. And, we'll see what happens.
Pirates aside.
Pirates are just, it's weird, like the Pittsburgh's pitching. I'm surprised the Pirates are as bad as they are given their pitching. Their pitching is not terrible.
No, it's pretty good, actually.
And I'm not just talking about Skeens.
Yeah. Yeah, they got decent pitching.
They've had a few starters really go this year. They've got like 3 guys in that rotation that can throw it a little bit.
Yeah, they do. And think that they're doing that without Jared Jones, who's out for the year, right, with his injury. All right, one last thing, and this is an easy one, Bob, just because it was the biggest news in baseball yesterday, and it's a subject that we've broached twice before on this podcast, going back to spring training and then going back a couple weeks ago when Rafael Devers basically told the Red Sox go pound sand when they asked him to play first base. He gets traded yesterday to the San Francisco Giants for a package of players, 2 pitchers that were in the majors, Jordan
Hicks and Harrison, right?
Yeah, and then a prospect, Tibbs, who was the second-ranked prospect in the Giants system. He was drafted last year in the first round. Are you surprised by this, A? And B, how does this change the landscape both for the Red Sox and in the National League playoff race?
Oh, it's so weird. If you're a Red Sox fan, you're finally excited over your team's performance. You get over 500, you have a big weekend, and then you take your best hitter and you send him out of town. So I don't know what that means from the Red Sox from a psychological standpoint in the present. I get it though. Look, I mean, they signed him to a 10-year deal. You're 2 years into it. There's obviously a lot of friction, and I'm not saying the Red Sox aren't at fault for that. They probably are the lead in terms of responsibility of that relationship deteriorating. But, you know, Bregman comes in, he's pissed about the positionless nature of his situation. And I think at some point you have to kind of, I don't want to say cut your losses, but you have to look at it for what it is and say like, okay, the dynamic here is off. This isn't good. And if you find that, like, though you did that deal and you can pivot out, I think ultimately what it comes down to is you've cleared that salary. And if you go out and get Kyle Tucker this offseason, or you reallocate that money, then fine. You know, it's not like they had to swallow the cash. So if you can pull back out and say, we probably aren't winning the World Series anyway this year, this deal, we don't feel good about it. We're basically going to pay this guy $30 million a year for him to be a DH for the next 9 years. Then you balance out and you go get another guy to replace him, which they will. I get like being a 25 Red Sox fan and being like, what the hell are we doing? I don't think it's as big of a deal long-term for the Red Sox as some seem to think it is. And I will say this about Devers. You, at some point when you sign that deal, like there's a certain amount of responsibility that comes with it and being an organization guy. And I'm not saying that you have to do everything they say or be happy about it, but to go full malcontent after they hand you that deal, I don't know, man. I'm good.
Yeah, I don't think it's as bad for the Red Sox long term. I mean, I think it impacts them this season, and it makes me wonder if Boston suddenly decides to become a seller next month, and that's a team that maybe we didn't think of as a seller initially, and now all of a sudden there might be some interesting names.
I don't think they're good enough, but the AL just isn't right. Great. So
the AL is not very good to begin with. So who knows? I mean, they're right in the middle of the race and they're in the mix right now, but let's see how this impacts their lineup going forward to take Devers out of it. How about, and it's funny because Russ says that this is him not getting shopped is the Luka Doncic comp, like what the Mavericks did trading Doncic to the Lakers and not shopping him around. Very, very astute point by our boy Russ there. But what about the Giants now? Does this make them a legit? I mean, they're already pretty legit. I mean, they're hanging in the National League West race, but does this make them that much better and more dangerous now for the rest of the regular season in the National League?
Yeah, I mean, we know that they have a good bullpen. They can pitch a little bit. They're middle of the pack in terms of runs per game. You add a guy like this to your lineup. I mean, they certainly feel like when you count up the NL playoff teams, it's hard to not have them as one of them right now. The Dodgers are so interesting in that whole thing. Like, would I pick the Dodgers to win the division? Sure. But you give me the Dodgers on paper and take the Dodgers name off of it. Right. And just give me the statistics of what's on the field right now. And it's like, are they head and shoulders, truly head and shoulders? They haven't played like it, better than everyone else. And certainly they'll get some of their pitching back and get these guys healthy, you'd think. But it also feels like you're always 1 week away from the next guy going down. You know, if Ohtani comes back and is Ohtani on the mound, then that changes everything for them, obviously.
He's supposed to pitch tonight, right?
Yeah.
So. Yeah. He's pitching tonight against the Padres.
Oh, is he actually on the mound for them tonight?
I thought I
I
saw.
thought we were in
Jeff
simulated game mode for them still, but
I thought I saw Jeff Passan put that out
geez.
last night. Yeah, he's pitching tonight against the Padres.
Wow. Okay, that's fun.
So,
yeah. I mean, if he comes back and right away is that guy, yeah, he is on the mound tonight. Cease and Ohtani. Ooh, that's a fun one.
Yeah,
might have to stay up for that one. Have some coffee.
there you go.
Yeah,
There you
but
go.
yeah, to your question, I mean, I think they're a playoff team.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and could be somebody the Phillies see in the postseason if they get there.
Fun. The Gabe Kapler Bowl,
Without Gabe.
the ghost of Gabe Bowl. Yeah.
Without Gabe. Anyway. All right. Well, that was a fun one. That was a great episode. Thanks to Aaron Nola again for joining us here on Phightin Words. Be sure to subscribe to Phightin Words on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, wherever you get your podcast. But the best place, of course, is to watch us right here on YouTube. Click the thumbs up, ring the bell. That way you'll always know when Bob and I go live and have a show. If you're listening in the podcast feed, you want to find us on YouTube, it's youtube.com/@Phightin Words. So for Bob Wankel, I'm Anthony SanFilippo saying have a wonderful week, everyone. And we will talk to you on Friday to get ready for the big Mets series down at Citizens Bank Park. Have a great week, everyone.